I agree that VR is not dead, but it's an interesting title because VR definitely has had its problems with its troubled launch
There are
and
ways in
troubled
which
subsequent.
the current state of VR looks like it's not dead, but geez, the people running it, are they trying to kill it? Yeah, no, they're
Yeah.
not, but god damn, Gen 2 has not gone well at all, is my
Hmm.
interpretation. Generation 2 of the VR headsets.
I
Before we
think.
dive like deeply in, actually, I think we should do another one of those qualifying statements. I like the qualifying statements. So, why should anyone listen to either of us about VR? I myself was gifted by Chris Hammond in the wake of Virtual Polar Expedition 2 a Vive headset at the release of Vives. We were doing VPE, and he gave thousands of dollars over the course of that charity event. And just as one of the comments that I made, shooting off my mouth throughout the thing, hey Chris, when you're done with the thing, why don't you
Hmm.
send me, when you're done sending thousands of dollars to all these worthy people, why don't you send me a headset? You got so much
I
money lying
remember
around.
that.
Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
like 2 weeks later, knock on the door, UPS dropping off a Vive. So,
Hmm.
my only claim to expertise in this area is that I was decidedly in the early adopters of the first wave of retail consumer grade stuff.
Yes, and
Whereas Harvey,
you've kept up. Well, the thing is, you've also kept up to date with kind of comparing the specifications of the more recent releases with Generation Two.
to an extent,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, because I got
my
rid of the
claim to
Vive.
expertise is a little bit more extensive. I got the Oculus Rift DK2 in 2014 as soon as that was released, so pre-consumer version development kit, and I was developing with that quite a lot. That was how I got into programming, and eventually what took me to university. Then at university last year, my undergraduate dissertation project was virtual reality telepresence using an HTC Vive. So I also have a Vive.
Mm.
And from that, I've just read a lot of literature on the science behind how VR works and kind of tricking your brain into seeing depth and the limitations with that, with motion sickness caused by it. So I've got a lot of the kind of scientific hardware and programming experience background. Pawn, I feel, is more well informed on the actual specs of the hardware that's on the
Don't say
market
that. I'm gonna
today.
have to like live up to that. I don't really know
Well,
exactly, but
and also just on the kind of kerfuffle that's been their launch that we keep on alluding to.
yeah.
I don't really remember much because I kind of when I transitioned into the kind of healthcare focus, there was a period of time when I just stopped thinking about VR completely and stopped reading my Road to VR newsletters. So I kind of missed the Gen 2 launch a little bit. But we're going to take you through, we're going to paint the picture of modern day commercial virtual reality and what that kind of means, how that's progressed, where it is now, and hopefully where it will go in the future. So I think,
Now, when Harv
chronologically,
says too that he has experience in the software end and the development of VR, you need to just say, "I am a VR developer," because the man has made a virtual reality game that is playable that he played for us during virtual polar expedition with friggin' cameras that watch you as you move through the space, multiple like there was a lot
I
going
can't
on
take.
there.
I can't take loads of credit for that because, to be honest, I think most of the programming was Danny 2462 two six
Hmm,
four two.
246.
Danny's some combination of four numbers.
It's his pin number.
He really he was like my programming mentor because I was self-taught up until that point, and yeah, he does not like my code. Did and does not think very highly of some of my code, which is fair because some of it's really awful. But I have developed other things though. So we did the VPE charity polar expedition, inspired of course by the KSP charity polar expeditions, of which KPE4 is maybe coming next year, springish time next year. So keep your eyes out for that. But I've also developed a variety
Sword
of
Art
VR mini
Online.
games.
Yeah.
I've made Sword Art Online the entire VR MMO, You can
Mm-hmm.
go play that and go get killed by what was the name of?
I
I
don't
can't remember the name of the guy who developed that in the anime. But I made a menu which is my most viewed video on YouTube, actually. Funnily
Yeah,
enough.
really?
Yeah.
That I didn't know. Hmm.
Yes, it is. It's nearly got 1 million views.
So there
And
you
part
go.
of my ego, despite our last stream, part of me is just there going, "Come on, hit that arbitrary milestone. Come on, 1 million." So I can tell people I've got a video of 1 million views. Yeah.
So click it now.
Yeah.
Click it today if you haven't. If you've already seen it, click it anyway, and then open up a anonymous browser tab and click it again. Set up a
Yeah.
bot network.
So just the variety of little things and one big project, which was robotic telepresence, where you have a robot remotely in a different room or across the world somewhere, and you put on a VR headset and you become the robot. You see
Oh,
through its
cool.
eyes, you feel through its stubby little wheel-like sensors, and I'll bring that up probably as time goes on because that's really where most of my, at least from the scientific point of view, perspective is.
Hmm.
But I think chronologically, we should first talk briefly about kind of the initial launch. I don't know about Houston. I don't know whether Houston has ever had any. Have you ever had a VR headset, Houston? You ever used
Uh,
VR?
yeah, I don't suppose you've used VR, have you, Houston?
Oh, you don't suppose I've got VR? You even know who you're talking to, kid? I was rocking the DK1 back in 2012, burning my eyes out, squinting through the screen door effect just to catch some of that immersion.
Hmm.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I was a pretty early adopter too. I got the DK2 in 2014. But the DK1, like I've read some stuff about it. It was pretty basic, right?
Pretty basic. It was the first commercially available VR headset to hit the market, man. Other than the Nintendo Virtual Boy. For its lack of pixels, frames, and low persistence, it was incredible for its time.
You forgot to mention the lack of positional tracking as well.
Yeah, well, you can keep your pansy-ass positional tracking. Us real VR pioneers grit our teeth and bear it through the sickness and the headaches, all for that sweet, sweet sense of presence.
Wait, real VR pioneer? Who the hell do you think I am? I've just been telling these guys about how I've been developing. Dude, I am a VR pioneer.
So what you're saying, Houston, is that it was pretty bad?
Well, it's not like headsets today are that much better, and they're way too expensive for what they're worth. My DK1 is holding up well enough. I mean, why would I drop over $400 for a new one? In fact, I'll have you know I'm using it right now, watching videos on my massive virtual desktop, and it's perfectly...
You're watching videos rather than paying attention to the show? Oh,
Oh, God, what the hell is going on in there, Houston?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I didn't throw up in the headset or... Oh God, it's in the lenses.
Oh.
The cable. It's too
Oh,
short.
oh.
I gotta go.
Oh, God.
okay. Yeah, no, that's... Thank God we don't have cameras in there. That's just disgusting.
Can we get cleaning in aisle 3, please? Oh, shit, we don't have any cleaners, and I'm no longer working at Walmart.
Yeah, actually, Houston, if you could just clean that up for us.
Yeah, I'll work on that with all my free time.
Oh, well, he sounds absolutely fine now. That's incredible recovery time.
You know? He's incredible. He's incredible.
So the DK1, the Oculus Rift Development Kit 1, was like the first real resurgence of VR to the mainstream commercial space. It wasn't technically a commercial product because it was for developers to begin making their games with, but it was very limited. It was less than the resolution that we now get per eye across both eyes. So
Oh,
really
wow.
squinting through those pixels. I think it was 720p or something to that effect. You got like 640 per eye, maybe at most. Yeah, I can't remember entirely, but
It's come a
not
long
good
way,
anyway.
baby.
Yeah, it has come a long way. And like I told Houston, the fucking idiot over there, you didn't have positional tracking, which is not something that many people really think too much about because it's the orientation. It's the being able to look around and see the virtual world, which is most important. What happens when you don't have positional tracking is that you don't really think about it, but your head moves constantly, especially like your eyes translate through space. Whenever you turn your head, whenever you just slightly move your body, you're getting those micro movements. And more than you might realize, that really helps you perceive the world around you and kind of the spatial relationship between objects and things.
Yeah,
When you don't
honestly,
have
that was
that,
a big thing, like just the little bit of head wobble and everything. When
yeah.
I started doing videos for YouTube in VR, that was kind of a problem because apparently I have, a weak neck or just some kind of syndrome coming on for all the little
Oh, wow.
micro jitters and shakes. It just, when I watched my own video back, I felt a little bit vommy just watching it. And then I tried to
Hmm.
make an effort to hold my head still and move in smoother, cleaner motions. That doesn't
Yeah, no,
work.
that's a good point. Like if you look at video of just raw VR perspective, it's shaking all over the place.
Mm.
And that's because your head just does move a lot in space. Um, I guess you could do some kind of image stabilization, but you'd end up cropping out
Yeah.
some of it.
Yeah, it would
Yeah,
depend
it's
on
kind of a
what you're
difficult problem
playing and
actually.
how that's going to look and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was, oof.
Yeah.
And
You
image
can do
stabilization actually takes a long time to process too. So
yeah,
rendering that
that's
stuff
true.
would not help for YouTube.
Um, a lot of games actually are so hyper aware that they live or die based on YouTubers making videos of them because VR is so niche
Hmm.
that a lot of them really make pains to set things up so that you can stream in like a reasonable way so that you can get access to like raw video rather than perspective warped video,
And I've been
which
out
is
of
an
the scene
interesting
a little bit lately, so like I know that it was getting better, but I don't think that I probably was still around for the heyday of it because that was a major issue in the early days. As
yeah,
a
really
YouTuber,
was.
Chris sends me this Vive, and it's all about like, cool, I get to make content for YouTube now, and it was just the biggest headache and hassle trying to set it up so that sometimes you'd have to just capture one eye, which didn't really work,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
some games had like a window that would output it, but they're trying to like make sure that they're not overwhelming your, you're now rendering the same image 3 times.
Yeah, one's for both eyes and one's for YouTube, and yeah.
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out how that's
Um,
going to work for your hardware and how they're going to keep up with your VR, and then they're trying to output a third time. So some developers just didn't have it in the beginning, and there was no like external
well, it's
output.
also just more development effort than you need to play the game because it's kind of weird. It's only really in recent years that developers have made efforts to make things YouTube video compatible, like so that people making videos can record. Because people who make videos are a really tiny demographic. Why would you develop for them? But it's
People
so that you can
who
show your
people
game in the
care
best
about
light.
who make videos is a small
Yeah,
demographic
exactly.
anyway.
Yeah,
Influencer.
yeah. So by all means, DK1 very basic, but it just had such a good Kickstarter campaign. I believe it was the most funded Kickstarter ever up until I don't know what's replaced it now. Actually, something did replace it eventually,
Probably
but
some card game where you embarrass yourself or something.
yeah, it really caught people's imaginations, and it caught my imagination, which is why I went through university and did computer science in the end. That was like I can really point to VR and that Kickstarter campaign as something that just I want to do that. That's what I want to do. That
Mm.
really got me, and it got a lot of people like that. So eventually, DK1 turned into DK2, again aimed at developers, but this time positional tracking, higher
Oh.
resolution, higher refresh rate. They'd figured out low persistence, which is something that I think Houston maybe briefly mentioned earlier. Do
Now,
you
actually,
know what low persistence is?
I I don't know what low persistence is. No. I
So,
also am curious about this positional tracking just in general on the DK2. Was it just gyroscopes or did they have something
no,
exterior?
no. So they had what the consumer Oculus Rift has, which is external webcams.
Ah,
Uh, 2 camera. Oh no, the DK2 had 1 camera, So just like a webcam,
And
and
actually,
it looks
the
at the
commercial
infrared
Rift
dots.
only came with one as well.
Oh, it did, and then when the touch controllers came out, then they added a second one because they needed it. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I just remember that being
Yeah,
a thing.
because the problem with one is that if you've only got infrared LEDs on the front, when you turn around, oh, your head is in the way, so they can't see you enough. So then they start putting them on the side, and I think for the commercial one, they even have them actually on the back strap. They have infrared LEDs. But especially when you've got hands and you like doing archery and kind of this one goes
Look at that
behind you and the
giant
webcam is
fist.
there and sorry, the perspective is brilliant. I love this. How does he have such massive hands? Yeah.
Big hands.
Yeah, two,
You know
you
what that
need-
means, ladies or fellas, whatever you're into.
You need two cameras to prevent things occluding each other and blocking sensors. There are much better ways of doing positional tracking, which we'll get onto with the kind of newer releases. But low persistence.
Yeah.
Low persistence is interesting. When you look at any light, like any electric light, in the UK it's 50 hertz mains frequency. You guys have 60, is it? Or 40? 60,
60.
right. So when you look at most like lights, you don't see it, but it's flickering constantly. And like cameras will pick it up. So sometimes if you see flickering video with light going on and off in the video, it's because the frame rate is syncing up with the mains electricity frequency. And the reason the reason you perceive it as being constantly on is because of
'Cause your
something
organs
known
suck.
as critical fusion flicker frequency. Critical flicker fusion frequency, which is a very, very fancy term, which just means
They did
the
that on
minimum
Dragon
frame
Ball
rate.
Z.
Yeah, I believe it was when they did the, yeah.
Let's do it,
It
now.
Did that work?
Kinda. I forgot how the movement was. It's a good thing you
forgot-
remembered.
we nearly got there, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the minimum frame rate at which you go from perceiving something as flickering to being constant. Or you go from perceiving something to be a slideshow of images. I need to remember to have my hand over here. A slideshow of images to being a continuous moving video. So with that in mind, if you have a screen strapped to your face and you're showing relatively
often
low
do.
frame rate footage, then you really like and you end up with like vision blurring because they show a frame, it stays on your face for a few milliseconds, but during that time your head moves slightly, and it's like if you see the world in this image, you turn your head and the entire world gets dragged with you because the display can't update fast enough.
Oh yeah. I've had that experience in the Vive where it just like
Yeah.
when it like lags out or something like that, then you go to turn your head and it just like goes, I'm busy right now. And it's...
Exactly. And you got that Houston's over there just throwing up again. Yeah, really bad motion sickness. So that's terrible.
I don't have any clips for him. Just keep going.
So how can you alleviate that? Because you can't just crank up the FPS even higher. You've got to assume people have relatively low-end computers. You can't solve everything by just cranking up the FPS. So the problem is that you're showing the incorrect image on the screen for too long. So if you don't have another frame available, just set it to black. Don't show an incorrect image. It's better to show blackness and to show nothing at all than to show an incorrect image for too long. And you'd think, oh, but then it's just flashing black at you. But the frame rate is past that critical flicker fusion threshold.
I don't think it works.
Oh, you just...
I don't think that works that way, Harv. I just tried it.
Yeah, no. Well, you didn't do it fast enough. You got to do it past the critical flicker fusion threshold.
My fingers won't move.
So you do it fast enough that it's imperceivable to the eye. And the result is that every time your brain registers an image, it's accurate for the orientation of your head at that point in time.
Okay.
So the DK2 had that, which vastly improved motion sickness, amongst other things.
So that actually brings us to the consumer grade models then, right? Because they did two
Yeah.
development kits and then we started seeing actual Rifts and Vives coming down the stream for us. My experience with the Vive was one of great glee, although because it had been gifted to me from Chris Hammond, I hadn't had to put the money into it, which was great, but now I didn't really have a video card powerful enough to do anything with it. So I ended up having to dig into the bank accounts and come up with, I think at that point, I don't think I went to the 1070. I don't think it existed at that point. I think it was a 960, because
1070
970
was
is
2016 or 17, wasn't it? 1070?
It might have been then. I might have gone to the VGA GTX 1070.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that makes sense. But anyway, I had to put the money in, and then I swear the Vive sat in my house for a week. And, it's exciting. It's virtual reality, and everybody's like raving about it online, about the room scale VR and how you've got to have this experience. And there it is sitting there. But in order to use it, I have to take my computer apart, remove the GPU, put in a new GPU, put some drivers in, and then I got to climb up on a ladder and hang 2 lighthouse mounts. And then I got to wire this thing that's got a breakout box, and the wires are going to go over here. And is the room big enough? And I need to move things around. And so it was like a week just waiting to have the time to put it together. So the out-of-box experience was already like I've got a life going on, I don't have time for this thing that I'm excited about. And then once I got into the headset, all of that disappeared because the experience of room scale in the Vive was just, it's epic. If you still have not to this day had one of these modern virtual reality headsets put on your face, and then, especially in the room scale scenario, and then walked around and turned your head and interacted with things, it is an experience to be had that cannot be replicated elsewhere.
And you can have it without buying a headset. You can go to arcades and stuff now, and they've got it. Don't know how many there are that give you the full room scale experience. I know there are at least a few. There's one just down the road in the city centre of Chester, where I live, which is entirely a VR arcade place. So they're coming out. There's places now.
Whenever I drive past a place like that, it's so weird. I feel like maybe I've only seen one, but I remember what I did see is in my local area. We were driving around and we saw a escape room place.
Yeah, I love escape rooms.
That's it's just so weird because it's a thing that didn't exist, and it's something that I now associate with watching people on YouTube, out in LA and places where they, do things like that. And then I drive down the street and see there's one near me. That's so weird.
You should do it. You should do an escape room if you haven't already.
I live in Detroit. My house is an escape room, Harvey. No, I don't have the free capital to feel like, hey, I think I'll drop some money and go do an escape room. But if you donate today, throw some bits at us.
Harv Pawn. Patreon.com/Harv Pawn. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes benefits. And pay for Pawn to go to an escape room and make a vlog.
We could do a video on that. You could go to one there, I could go to one here. We both film it, and then it's like a timed, who's going to get out first. It's hard to do those videos, though, because you can't show the, how you figured it out, or else you ruin it for everyone else.
Well, yeah.
Wait a second. How does this relate to virtual reality?
Back to virtual reality.
Anyway,
escape rooms, actually, you can get VR escape room games, which I remember one of them was really big around the time the CV1 and the HTC Vive came out. But let's cut to the chase. Big hurdle, potentially the worst thing about those headsets, and still to this day, isn't the price. The price is prohibitive, but people have money. The worst thing is the lack of content, the lack of games. I have used mine quite extensively, but far more for development, for making games, and for playing Beat Saber than anything else. I played Elite Dangerous for a while, played a smattering of other games. The default Valve Lab, which had a mini game for archery in it, I played that for more time than I've played most other VR games. And I've not used my headset now for gaming in 6 months.
I had
and
a
that's
similar
not unusual.
experience, and then I,
Yeah.
listed I didn't touch the thing for 6 months, and then I listed the Vive, and sold it to somebody who was excited about it, used for like
Mm.
$350 or I don't even remember what I got for it, but sold it to somebody in the local area. And yeah, that's the thing is that as it exists right now, the games that at least back then, I don't know what's going on with VR gaming today because been out of it for 6 months or more at this point, but they're not the things that draw you back in that keep you going. They are
Yeah.
kind of micro experience games, and it's a way easier and a way better thing to be developing at this stage of VR if you're trying to put together a massive character based RPG first person, literally first person because you're VR, kind of thing. That's development on a massive scale that when you're not having to consider that you have a real human being to shove into your virtual world takes years and years and years and years. And VR needed games. And so what we've got is a lot of micro experiences, and they're the kind of things that, you come back to for a few weeks, couple of months, you don't touch it, you come back again, but they're not the things that keep making you go, ooh, I want to jump back in.
And there's just the problem is I really feel like Oculus in particular saw this coming. And even Valve to some degree, they saw it coming. They knew like, hey, we're launching a platform for games. We need games, which is why they rushed out the DK1 and the DK2 to try and let developers have the hardware with which to start developing stuff. Even by the time of release, there still wasn't much. Even 2 years later, there still weren't many full games that were enough to keep people coming back. And that has been, if anyone says like, hey man, VR was a flop, that's probably what they're referring to. Because there's no like single game that everyone is like, oh man, this really is what you, like, I play this like every other day now. You have periods where you go through that and then you kind of die out. The only exception to that really, for me, was Beach Saber, which if you haven't heard of it, two lightsabers, blocks coming at you, slash the right blocks with the correct lightsaber in the correct direction, intense physical activity, really fun.
Makes use of that room scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, really puts you into.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a forward-facing game, so it could theoretically be played in a chair kind of thing. It's not a
Yeah, no,
three-dimensional
definitely,
kind
yeah.
of a deal, but it really does. You stand in the middle of the room. You don't have to run around. That's another thing is like the room scale concept. Room scale really, really makes it feel incredible to be in a giant
Yeah.
space and be able to walk around. But then what we found out, and how could they have known this, Harv? What we found out is that the rooms of our houses aren't empty. Who saw that one coming?
What?
So, yeah,
What?
the idea of having like more than just having the like 2.5 meter minimum or something of a room that either is empty or that you can conveniently move a table out of the way every time you want to play turned out to be like,
Yeah.
room scale is so awesome, but if I want to play, and this is
I have to
another.
move
This is a
everything.
huge thing. Yeah, this is a whole topic in and of itself. Is if I want to play VR, I gotta set it up. Sometimes just opening the game is kind of irksome. Some games want to be opened when you're in the
Yeah.
headset. Some games don't want to be opened when you're in the headset. If you're recording it, then you
Well,
gotta set it up
that's a bit
before you're in
better.
the headset.
That's a bit better nowadays because Steam has really integrated that quite well. So it's less of a pain now. I would say that it's still just a pain to just have to put on the headset to
Yeah.
turn on the tracking stations.
Headset
and to,
on,
like,
and then with the Vive, that was unless you upgraded, unless you paid for more and bought the extra clips and got the headphones and that kind of thing, then the Vive is making sure you got everything plugged in, you get the headset in, you put that thing on, now you're blind, you're looking for the remote controls, you need the controls on, and I can tell you this too, my experience with day one, Vive, the controllers were fine in use, but they took 6 to 8 months to send down a firmware patch that finally made the controllers just work when I turned them on. What would happen is
they didn't work for you.
one of them would sync, and then the other one would not. And then I could turn one of them off or one of them on, and the other one would come on, but I couldn't get both of them to turn on and actually connect to the PC at the same time. And it was a known issue, and there was a whole bunch of different methods for it. And I found out, like, if you leave the USB plugged in for both of them, turn them on while they're both on USB, wait for it to sync, and then unplug them, Sometimes that would work, sometimes it wouldn't, but that was usually like the process where after about 5 minutes of struggling, you would get it to work. So what you have now is headset on, blind gasping, trying to find the controllers. Now I've got the controllers in my hand. Even if you turn the controllers on ahead of time, now I've got to like make sure that the controllers actually synced up. Oh, they're not syncing. Controllers set out, headset on, controllers in hand. Shit, I need audio. Controllers back down, reach over, find the headset over the top of the giant thing that's already on your head. There you go. Or the earbuds in, which are uncomfortable. And that was the way they shipped the first Vive. No like audio built into it. And what I
to be
thought
honest,
was going on in the market at that place, I think Rift really got a nice boost out of that, because Rift did not have the room scale thing. I mean, they had it. It was capable, but they were selling it more as we're the seated experience, and we got one camera with our, launch version of this headset.
Yeah.
And like that was a big drawback against them. But then when you started doing the comparisons and stuff, the Rift was a headset that, mainly because it just happens in a seat and because they had the friggin', earphones built in, you could just pick it up and put it on and grab the controllers and go.
Yeah, so I don't want to stick too long because there's quite a history now since then. But Oculus saw the whole room problem coming. And I remember quite disliking Oculus at the time because of the marketing being, this is a sit-down experience. It's like, hey, you can do room scale, but why would you? It's a sit-down experience. And I was like, you would do it because room experience is awesome, man. It's so much better. But they saw the lack of space coming. They also saw that if they could be slightly cheaper than Vive, they would get more sales. And I think they did. I think they did sell better
Oh, really?
than Vive.
I didn't know. I don't know the figures, but that's...
No, I don't know them off the
would
top of my head.
believe
I'm
it.
kind of bullshitting, but I think they did.
At what was it, like $800 or $900 at launch or something for the Vive? Yeah, I would imagine that the 500, I think, for Rift.
£600. I don't know what that was.
That was
I think the Oculus was
$7,000
£600.
USD. It was pre-Brexit.
Pre-Brexit, yeah. Yeah, I guess $500. No, I don't know. You know what? I don't know. I paid $740 for my Vive, or maybe $640. I forget now. It was expensive anyway. But so to kind of wrap up there, with the first gen, you had these various room scale, technical, like you had the controllers, the syncing problem with the controllers, technical issues like that. My Vive had flickering screen for the first, few months that I had it. I had to get it refurbished.
Oh.
So, yeah, various issues. I think I tripped over the cable at one point playing. I can't remember the name of it, but it was a really good archery game at the time. But again, like a mini game.
Is that one in
I tripped over the cable and
in the building?
Something.
The archery
Yeah,
game that was in
yes.
the sort of dojo?
In a dojo kind of thing.
I remember that one, yeah.
It was.
I remember
intense,
watching
man.
you
It was
play
really
that
good.
one, I believe.
Yeah. Oh, great. So some people adopted. Some people went in, early adopters-ish, early-ish. And what they got was kind of a less than what they hoped for experience overall. And I think it's pretty ubiquitous that plenty of people just kind of stopped using their VR regularly. Then you get to Gen 2. By Gen 2, they really should have had all this figured out. It should have been, like, they needed it to be the mass adoption. Like, Facebook at the time, having acquired Oculus by this point, were aiming for 1 billion users with a VR headset by 2020 or something ridiculous like that.
Okay.
They were trying to go big. And just
Are they
didn't
going
quite...
home yet? Because that didn't work out. Go big or go
Yeah.
home. They went, like, it just, and the thing with Gen 2 is that they knew exactly what they needed to do, and then they didn't do it. It just didn't work out. Like, they tried to do it, they made a good solid effort, but it had all the same issues. Day one release, bugs, patches over the course of months coming down, trying to fix things. If I recall correctly, the Rift S, replacing the Rift, they always said, they were always upfront about this, and I think it was great for them to say it, and a great marketing tactic, and it was also just like the position that they needed to take in the marketplace. I'm totally behind the idea of Gen 2 VR is actually 1.5, which is what they were saying about Rift S. This is not a giant
Yeah,
change.
definitely.
We're just putting out the equipment, and the whole goal was we're going to make sure that this experience is easy to get into. You open the box, you plug it in. Once it's set up, you just grab it and go. And they were trying. They made the effort. It didn't work. There were so many reports of the Rift S having these day one bug issues with screens that were either flickering or just going black, not being able to get any output to it, people having problems with different connections and stuff like that. And that was the day 2 feedback that you do not need, that you need to not have, in fact, if you're going to be doing what they were trying to do, which was say, this is a technology ready for consumers. You can buy it, plug it in. You don't need to be, a wizard. You don't have to spend hours, figuring out how the cables go. Just boom, it's ready to go. And it just didn't happen. Although it kind of did happen with their completely, computer-free headsets. They have been incredibly well received. The Rift Go as well as the Rift Quest, right? I mean, it's not even, is it Rift Quest? It's Oculus Quest.
Oculus Quest, I think. But same difference. I mean,
those have been incredibly well received. Amazon reviews of 4.5 and above out of 5 stars from, all of the people who have bought them. So it's a large community of people who are feeding back that this works great. Something that's completely contained. I just prick it up. I've put the games already on it. SD card, boom, ready to go. That worked. The connection to the PC thing, Gen 2 has failed, and it's not just Rift's fault.
Well, this is where technology gets really interesting as well, because like we were saying with the Vive, what we didn't really mention in one of the big issues with, not only have you got to put on all these things, you've also got to get the wire behind your head in the right kind of way so that it doesn't snag on your chair and so on and so forth. I look like I'm having a seizure on screen right now, but so they didn't have a choice for Gen 1 because they couldn't drive costs up even further. Otherwise, no one would have bought it. But for Gen 2 or Gen 1.5, you start seeing these inside-out positional tracking technologies, which allow some of the strain that was going from the lighthouses with the Vive and the webcams with Oculus to be done on the headset. And that allows you to get this completely computer-free Oculus Quest. Vive Cosmos, is it, that's coming out? I don't even know. No, is the Cosmos? No, the Cosmos is wired.
Yeah, it's wired. It's a PC-enabled thing, but they are using the inside-out tracking.
Yes, but there is a Valve wireless one, I think.
Is there?
I don't know.
I'm not aware.
Maybe there's going to be.
It.
Not sure.
There definitely will be if they're still a company or if Steam decides to stay in that business.
Yeah, I was going to say, by all means, they need one.
After the success of the completely portable headsets from Rift's end of things, yeah. And actually, right now, my perception of Vive is that they brought, where Rift answered, what worked and what didn't in the scenario to saying, we're going to try and come up with a all-in-one, you can just put it on and play it package, and that worked great. And they tried to make a version of that for wired to the PC, and just too many issues, too many bugs, too many day one complaints, hardware failures too. Like you were saying, you had to send one back. Lots of people from who picked up the Rift S had to send them back. They made an effort. They were going in the right direction. They fell a little bit on their face in 1/3 of their offerings. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here literally right now. I am looking at the listing of what Vive has brought, just throughout the generations, all of their headsets, and I'm seeing nothing. They brought nothing to Gen 2. We have nothing whatsoever to improve on what we were doing before, except for maybe there's a little bit greater pixel density in this, and we changed the connections a little bit. And we're using that fancy inside-out tracking on one of the models that we make, but all the other ones are still lighthouses. And we've got we've got sort of a business model that's built on the upgrades and the extra things, and maybe you need another lighthouse, and maybe you need a wireless thing, and maybe you want to strap some headphones on there. And now it's all about like an all-in-one pick it up and put it on package, and like the Cosmos just doesn't even have a place in the market. I'm looking at the old Vive versus the Cosmos and saying all you've done is changed like pixel density. And there's other things you could say about it, but functionally for gameplay,
Yeah.
there's
And that's
not
not
much
even
here.
So pixel density is a really important thing, but it's not that crucial thing that was holding them back. Like people didn't not buy Vive because they looked at the spec and went, "Well, there's not enough pixels." That no one made that decision based on that alone.
Definitely not.
So troubled launch then. Does this mean? I mean, you said no to begin with, but now, do you think that VR is dead?
No.
No, me
I
neither.
think it's a
And
troubled time that we will move through, and that Rift is leading the way with its all-in-one stuff, basically.
well, yes, and also that there's a big unspoken assumption here, which is that we're talking exclusively about VR gaming, basically, which is a fair assumption to make because Rift and Vive were completely marketed at gamers. And the reason for that, when you think about it, is because these are quite intensive headsets. You've got to render the image twice, like we've already talked about. You've got to render it in higher resolution than you would for a normal desktop monitor because
And
the
at
pixels are
higher
so close to
frame
the eye.
rate, frequency,
Higher frame
90
rate
hertz,
because you've
or
got motion sickness and other computation going on as well. The reason you go for gamers is because gamers already have super high performance computers that can run all that stuff. In the
and
Gen 1, we didn't see any of these wireless on-board complete packages other than like Samsung Gear VR, which ran off your phone, because anything other than phones, even phones, didn't have like the power. Like everyone's laptop is not good enough to run VR properly, the common laptop. And that is what makes it such a niche market anyway, that they may as well go for gamers who have got that thing. And so gaming is where it's naturally, the natural progression has gone to. The main reason I think VR isn't dead is because VR's main, I want to qualify something as well, but VR's main capacity to really kind of make an impact on humanity isn't in gaming. Like games can be cool and all, but it's got a much more profound implication than just, hey, I'm more immersed in my game now. And the thing I wanted to clarify, from here on, when we talk about VR, we should really be talking about AR, which is augmented reality. And a point I like to make to people whenever I bring up this stuff, because I'm a bit of a obsessive, is that augmented reality is the entire spectrum. Whoa. Whoa. Augmented reality is the entire spectrum from all the way of 99% of your vision is the real world until 99% of your vision is a virtual world. VR is one point along that spectrum, and it's the 100% of your vision is a virtual world. So when people talk about like, hey, I don't care about VR, but AR is really good, or oh, AR is boring, it's VR where it's at, you're kind of comparing two different things. AR encompasses everything. It's just that AR is less catchy to say. So when we carry on and talk about VR now, just keep in mind that we're not limiting ourselves to just completely virtual. We're talking about a VR, not just AR, but
yeah, I
VR
actually
is
looked
the better one to
recently
say.
because I was like very tempted when Rift S was launching because I was like inside out tracking $400. I can use that on the live streams again, and I always wanted to try the Rift to be able to cross compare with the Vive experience that I'd had. You know, the reports were Rift had the better controllers on launch day one, like the best controllers anybody had ever felt. At least that's what they were saying back
Yeah,
then. You know,
yeah,
just
they were.
wow, these controllers. So I wanted to like have that experience with Rift S, and I didn't have the money regardless. But if I did, I still would have been like because of all of the day one issues. But I did start looking at because I saw an ad for my local micro center which is just a computer place over here. That does like these incredible rebate deals and stuff. You can put together a computer for $30 or something. You can get a
Yeah.
lot off. You buy the CPU and the motherboard and the RAM, and they're like, here's 3 rebate things. Mail them in, and you'll eventually get the money back. They were advertising, I think, Hewlett Packard and HP build of, is it Microsoft's AR headsets now?
HoloLens.
Yeah, HoloLens.
HoloLens, yeah.
So, you've got all these different manufacturers that are building off of somebody else's design scheme, and they had one that I believe was like less than $200. And I was like,
Yeah.
less than $200. And here's another thing because we talk for so long, each of us, and then we need to start talking over each other so we can like hit on the points. But like the pixel count kind of thing and pixel density and higher resolution, nobody cares. Nobody who has played in a VR headset gives a fuck. Okay? No one cares about the pixel density. No one who's buying VR headsets cares about, like, and the market has proven this because they keep like shoving more pixel density in, and Gen 2, if we're even going to call it that, is just here's more pixels. We don't know what to do with this. And what we care about, what is like heard over and over again, is wider fields of view and, easier access to it. But like when you come down to it, we as a human race are just thrilled to sit with a handheld that's about that big and look down at somebody in this little tiny thing who's running across the field with a thing over their head floating down and falling on horses. I'm trying to do a Link reference here. We are thrilled to play Dark Souls on a tablet-sized device with, it's good pixel density, but it's a tiny little screen. We don't care. Like, good games have never truly been about graphics. Graphics may have been there in a good game, but it wasn't the thing that, the graphics. Like, if you have to rely on graphics, it's the big budget summer film. It didn't have any, like, thing going for it other than explosions and Michael Bay. Graphics have never been as important as having, the full or larger experience. And what the community of people who have had VR have given the feedback in this generation too, at least when it came out, is like they go, yeah, it seems a little bit crisper and clearer. I can read some of this stuff. That's cool. But let me tell you what sucks. Like, they say that and then they go on to what doesn't work and what hasn't been addressed. And it doesn't seem to be a concern for people. Like, we would be happy with the same resolutions we were using on the Vive headset if you gave us 140 degrees of field of vision instead of 110.
Okay, so there are technical reasons for why they can't just increase the field of view. It's a much trickier problem, both in terms of, like, you hear people complain, and people do complain about God rays and chromatic aberration and stuff that the lenses cause. When you try and crank up the field of view, you either have to make the display around the eyes, or you have to use some really fancy lenses to get that kind of field. And if you use those lenses, you get worse black colors and light rays into your eyes and other stuff like that. And you stretch those pixels wider, which is why I think they were trying to go DPI, dots per inch first, and then field of view, because the field of view is the trickier problem. And like, if you're already dealing with God rays, you don't want to have really blown up pixels as well. But moving kind of into the short term,
we should be interrupting each other, and my suggestion to that is that, like, people will complain about God rays, and I can see the fence if I look close, I can see this kind of stuff. But like, most players say, when you're in the game, it doesn't really bother you that much, or it's not, when you're involved in an experience, it's not pulling you out of the experience thing, and that's what VR brings, is that whole like experience of immersing you. And it's just like true Gen 2 of VR is going to have to be field of view. It's got to be field of view, because none of this is anything really. Look, I can move my head now, and I don't need to hang 2 things in my room first. That's a one-time affair that I had to do. Oh, we've gone to a whole new generation of VR. If it's just the same field of view and crisper graphics, it's not going to make a difference. It's not a reason to upgrade the headset you have now. I
disagree that unless the field of view is like twice as good, I don't think any realistic improvements to field of view are going to come that quickly. You've got some displays
Curved
which are really
LEDs,
high-end
man.
headsets now
Curved
that are
LEDs.
like 2 displays. But just to cap off talking about this topic, because you just want to keep pulling us back into it, Pawn, when I'm
Isn't
trying
that
to
what
move
we're here
on.
for? What's that? That's the point. We're talking about Gen 2 and is it dead or not? This is
No, we're
like,
talking
these are
about
the main
VR,
issues.
is it dead or not? Which is more
All right,
AVR than
VR.
augmented segue.
So this is VR.
What I will talk
Like this, we
say
should argue
briefly
more.
is
Get
that
higher
the
rated.
gap that I really see that we really need is wireless, inside out, blah, 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 that connects to your computer without you having to buy an extra wireless adapter. It connects wirelessly rather than having the cable and everything. So it really is like a put once on, but be able to play the games from your computer. If we're talking about games, because I feel like gamers aren't picking up these standalone mobile headsets because they're not on their Steam libraries on running from their high-end computers, and I feel like that is quite important.
Yeah, the
But
aftermarket kind of
anyway,
thing also, because that is another like factor here is that there were you had the products launch and then you had the products launch and then you had the developments made, and each one of the different like manufacturers brought something to the table. And like Rift was highly used, like the controllers are great, and oh, the audio is so much better. And reviewers were out saying, what we would prefer on the Rift is this, what we would prefer on the Vive is that, and it just looks like what they've brought to market again. I know you want to get off Gen 2, but in Gen 2 is like
Gen 1.5.
neither of them, we should really just start calling it that, yeah, because it looks like that. Neither of them seem to have learned much from the other. I mean, Rift is doing better in the category of learning, but the fact that the Rift now has the Rift S has these little headphone things that they just kind of blow the audio past your ear. They're built in. There's no cups. There's no like they knew in their first generation stereo sound is important to immerse you in the environment, and then the second generation 1.5 rather, they threw that away, and probably so that they could afford to cram more pixels in the LCD. And it's like, but you knew that, you had that, you hit that, you like gave that up. Meanwhile, your competitor realized, oh, Rift got a lot of praise for the headset things. Vive Cosmos better have some flap down cups on their heads, and so they did it. But you've abandoned what was working, but they picked that pup. But meanwhile, they aren't doing what you did that was working, and it's just like, get on the same page. Listen to the consumers. Like, you don't just take the feedback that you got, that you heard about, that your competitor was getting that was like good for them, and go, we got to do that. No, also remember what you heard that was good about yours, and don't throw that out with the bathwater. That's a baby.
You could sell that. Yeah. So, right, hard forcing you onto a new topic
Okay.
now. When we talk about augmented reality and virtual reality, the technology is going to get there. For all our gripes about it, oh, you chose pixels over whatever, the technology is getting there. And you talk about VR being dead because not enough people have adopted it for playing games and stuff. And there's not enough games. If you look at the size of the industry, gaming is like $120 billion or something industry right now. Forbes, I think, are predicting that VR by 2022 is going to be larger than gaming in terms of its economic value. But if people aren't buying things for games, then what the hell is that money? It's all the tech companies who are seeing where VR and AR is going and are piling in the money there. You've got Intel and the kind of the big boys, NVIDIA. I mean, NVIDIA are already in because of gaming, but big tech companies moving towards it. And it's not for gaming that they're doing it. It's for everything else. It's for the kind of impact on humanity that this technology is going to have. Because if we assume that, hey, there's investment in the technology is going to get there, we're going to go from ski masks down to more like glasses type things, where really it is, you can put it on and you can wear around, and it might take a few years. But if we say, hey, we're going to get there eventually, then that opens up a whole world of just You think everyone uses phones all the time? Think about how phones have augmented our human experience. Imagine having phones, but everywhere, and the kind of interactivity and the ability to just procure knowledge and information
Yeah.
instantly
Added
without being
information. You just
antisocial.
see someone and you remember that, or it just like starts popping up information about them, or you're meeting someone new and they've set up a friggin' card that tells you the things you need to know, or yeah.
Yeah. Or let's say you're an engineer, you walk into a building because you're there to fix the electricity, and you just go, "Oh yeah, I see through that wall. That's where it's broken," and then you just go fix that.
Mm,
Because with all these like architectural firms now are using VR, AR, a hell of a lot. Like the original manufacturing, well, not manufacturing, but the original blueprints for buildings and things nowadays are kept in 3D models for the explicit future purpose of engineers being able to, someone who's new to the building, you walk into the building, you sync with the building on your phone, which connects to your AR glasses, and then you can see the
the
infrastructure
implant in the
and the
back of your
pipes and the
skull.
electricity and yeah. I mean, it's getting there. I went
Mm.
to a London university for an open day thing, general science and technology. One of them was literally talking about implantable microchips that could like stimulate certain parts of the brain. Um, it's not sci-fi. It's like the
Yeah.
technology, we know it works and it will work eventually. It really is just a matter of time.
I referenced the
And
whole
yeah,
thing
man.
where you can put on a friggin' like stylist, like you're getting your hair bleached and dyed or something like that, that they've got these things you put on and the cups and everything like that, and you can like control a computer, you can move a mouse and stuff with a little bit of training. Like that's amazing that we can like pick up whatever it's picking up, electromagnetics or heat
Yeah.
signals and stuff like that, and be able to control a computer. And we didn't have to plug something into your spinal cord or your cerebral
Mm.
cortex. It's just a hat you put on and boom. So yeah, AR is going to be a huge thing that shapes the future, and probably for the worse. Um, no, it'll introduce just a whole new load of just things for old people to be angry at. Goddamn
Well,
kids playing their
even
Pokemans in the park again. Now they'll actually be like chasing each other and chasing the Pokemans down and bumping into people and shit.
I mean, the funny thing is that by the time we get there, the old people are going to be us, and we're going to
No,
be
I'm
like,
already
"Hell
there.
yeah, hell yeah, AR."
Yeah,
Yeah,
the kids are going to be looking back going, what are you still using that AR shit? Dude, that's
yeah.
so
God, we've
weak.
already got. Yeah, you're still using a physical display. We've just got nerve signals directly to the
Just
neocortex.
get your eyes replaced already. God, Grandpa. Wake up to the
Yeah.
future. It's here.
Oh, but yes. So in essence, VR for a gaming launch seems to have flopped a little bit, in part due to the technology still not quite being there, and in part to some bad marketing and decision making on behalf of the two kind of major players in that space.
Yeah.
But the industry is still growing because of the massive tech investment, and it's far more than just about gaming. It really is.
Let me tell you
So
what Vive
is
fucked
VR
up
dead?
too. Vive Cosmos, they decided that they should have their controllers like lit with LEDs constantly, because the infrareds weren't enough. So we're going to have it all lit
Oh,
up
okay.
and it's
Oh, I
going to
take
look
it
so
back.
cool.
VR's fucking dead. Yeah. God.
So now their controller battery life is down to like 2 hours.
Well, that's
Yeah.
really crap.
Just
Yeah.
like unsolving problems that have been solved. It's like, hey, what were we doing yesterday? I don't know. Hey, I carved this circular thing out of wood. What should we call it? I think someone's made it. It's the wheel. We did that on Thursday, Ted. Quit going backwards.
Yes, quit going backwards and start going forwards into the future. And when you go forwards into the future, you've got to be more and more savvy and aware of the threats that are out there in the technological space. And for that reason, today's show is sponsored by a company called Your VPN, protecting you from a myriad of dangers, let's say, that exist in the world today and will continue to. So I believe we have an ad to run. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Houston, you want to roll our Your VPN sponsorship ad? Pixels are not important. No one
pixels!
cares about pixels. It's just the pixel
There's
counts
not
don't
enough
matter.
pixels, Gavin.
It's about the immersive
There's not enough
experience. It's
pixels.
oh, we're back.
Failed
Jeez.
you.
Thanks, Harvey. Shh, we're back. Damn it, Houston. So Your VPN, a wonderful service available today. If you sign up on their website with the affiliate code Harv Pawn, you'll get 20% off your first usage of Gavin. And I believe he will also defend you in the event that someone tries to attack you during a virtual reality play session. So it all
Yes,
connects.
It does. Because obviously, defenseless, you can't see what's going on around you, you can't hear anything. Have
Right.
Gavin there with a baseball bat right behind you, and just he can tell you, or he can just kill whatever comes in.
In fact,
know?
I just signed up for it, but it hasn't like come in yet, and I don't feel quite safe. In fact, I feel as though something's been stolen from me even during the show, which is weird. It can't be true, but it's. I think we should all sign up for Your VPN, and it helps support the show. So you go find out where that website actually exists anywhere on the internet, and if you do, you let us know.
I believe it does exist. It's patreon.com/Harv and Pawn. That's
okay.
HARVANDPAWN. Yeah, it's a little known website, but it's a pretty good startup company, and they need the funds, they need a bit of support, so well worth supporting. I want to talk about that script. So I made that video in pretty short order, just with a whole lot of B-roll footage, as you could tell. There's a really good website for getting that stuff, by the way, called Pexels, Pexels. Watermark free, royalty free, super high quality. It's got a relatively small library, but it's good. But that script, I lifted a lot of it directly from NordVPN's webpage. And so on screen right now, in just a few seconds, maybe already, you should be able to see, yeah, there's a link there. And it's just some of the marketing, like the whole 70% offer thing at the end, where, hey, 8 hours, 52 minutes left. Like, they literally do that stuff. And I'm satirizing them just for the sake of parody. But the way a lot of it is written, I just couldn't help but use it directly. Like that bit about the police. It's, where is it? Where it says something about, the police aren't allowed to raid your home without a warrant. And then they say, but online hackers and government surveillance can easily get into your data. And I just had to change it to, but they'll do it anyway.
They will come to your house. I mean, they're clearly gearing up for it. If you ask the Branch Davidians, they're not there anymore. If you visit Waco, Texas, you might be able to find some of the people. Don't visit Waco, Texas. It's not going to work out, probably.
No. There's a specific frame in that video which just cracks me up, because a lot of the B-roll footage is actually stolen from NordVPN's own marketing videos as well. Copyright. It's parody. It's allowed. There's one frame which this super creepy message comes up on screen, and it says something along the lines of, they might be watching you right now. And just, the Your VPN logo comes up on my version of the video, and then beneath it, they might be watching you right now. So that whole thing was inspired by just the creepy, out of context NordVPN marketing. NordVPN, if you're watching, we would take a real sponsorship from you. We'll do it. We would do it. I would do it. I don't know about Pawn, but if you could change all your branding to Your VPN instead, it would be more thematically consistent with the show,
Well, and I think it's NordVPN that I've heard.
Oh my God, Gavin, where'd you go? Where did Gavin go?
Who?
Pawn?
Was there a?
What are you doing here?
I think I've heard that NordVPN actually their service is not as like good and full, and their servers aren't as quick, and like it's not as good a product as some of its competitors, because they take all the money that they make and pump it into marketing. I think it's
It's a shame because
NordVPN.
the marketing got me as well. I paid £100 or something for 3 years NordVPN at 70% off. It's okay, but like the final bit in that skit is your VPN. It breaks a lot of your other software, but hey, at least we paid PewDiePie a lot of money, which was a joke that you suggested. The it breaks a lot of your other software is from personal experience. My emails won't sync when I'm on the VPN. I suspect that Microsoft knows the IP addresses, like has an ongoing blacklist for VPN IP addresses.
Oh,
My Twitch chat will continually reload, so I'll miss messages. And yeah, there's just a whole load of problems that I have with it.
and
So
meanwhile,
I use it by default, but I quite often just turn it off when I actually need to do things.
what is it that I use for a VPN? I only turn on TorGuard. I don't know if that's just the name of their software or whatnot, but this thing I just turn
Tor
it
is
on and
the
it works.
Tor is that dark web thing, isn't it?
And TorGuard too, like they had no. I when I was shopping for VPNs, I was looking at. I was seeing a lot of them saying, if you're going to use torrenting, if you're going to do that, or this, that, the other thing, please connect to these servers here, and and we won't actually allow you to make connections through that, so it won't work. There was none of that in their literature. I don't know if they have specific servers where they want you to connect or something. If I am, I go somewhere, off the beaten path in terms of servers that I connect to for the VPN when I'm doing, something that I don't want people to know about. But yeah, they were just strong and didn't tell me what I couldn't do, when I'm paying them to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And I much prefer that, because it's like I don't want the people who I'm buying a VPN from acting like the reason why I'm buying a VPN doesn't have to do with torrenting and stuff like that. Like, I want you to stand up and be like, we know why you're getting this, and you shouldn't be ashamed. Here you go. As opposed to a bunch of like plastered marketing and stuff that's trying to make it look like we're just here to make sure that mom's kids are safe at the supermarket because of the cell phone and there could be a hacker in the other aisle. No, I need to be safe from my ISP, because I need to be safe from Rockstar Games, because they're sitting in the torrent fields watching to see who's downloading GTA 5 or not, and then DMCAing your IP address and shit, circumventing
I got
legislation.
I got in trouble with my dad a few years ago. By the way, if you're anti-piracy, we have a show all about that. So if you missed it previously, just have a Google for Harv Pawn piracy, and you should find our thoughts on the matter. Yeah, I was downloading a film, I think. I just torrented some film, and my dad comes into the room a few days later. Have you been on illegal websites? Because I got a really angry, threatening email from our ISP saying that if you do it again, they're going to block our internet connection. It's like,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's like,
So,
that is a whole nother show, but I just want to say, like, did anyone in any country elect the internet service providers to become the police of the internet? Because we didn't over
the government did.
Our government did. Well, if our government did in America, FCC, the FCC is no longer controlled by the American people. It's been overthrown by Agit Pi and Verizon, AT&T, and Comcast, and that is a measurable fact at this point. So even if we had said yes, okay, first we said no, and then people who wanted it another way did. That's a whole nother show. See?
Mm-hmm.
We don't need
And
topics.
with
We
that-
got topics falling out of the sky.
Yes, and we have so many topics that we have trouble sometimes deciding which ones people want to hear about. So if you'd like the opportunity to have your say and to vote on which topics you would like to see, well, we just ran a poll at the start of this stream, and we've got some results. The main things which apparently you guys would be willing to support us for in order to get our voting on discussion topics for upcoming shows and getting on-screen recognition, thanks for supporting us, credits in the videos. And so, I think this might be a good time to give a bit of a shout out. Thank you to our top chat supporter, what do you call it on Twitch? Bit donator, cheerer? Top cheerer?
Top cheer.
Random Aim. Thank you very much for those 500 bits.
Thank you very much.
And to our patrons,
let's see.
whose names I have not learned off by heart.
We got Noah Craw, right? We got Noah. Is Rex supporting? Did Rex sign up? Rex Gates?
I think Rex did, yeah. Find a list of patrons.
You find the list. This is a thing that Patreon needs to like figure out with having a nice API too, because what we want to do is have an outro card that gives you guys credit where credit's due for throwing us some money. But Patreon has not made it easy to access that kind of thing programmatically. Apparently, they value your privacy or something.
They haven't even made it easy to just access via the goddamn webpage. I just want to see a list of the people who give me money each month. Why is that so hard?
I am not in that list. I actually wonder if it's easier to go to our email box and say...
It might be.
Railway Hacker, Rex Skates, Noah, and... I just want to make sure I'm okay to read whatever name has been used. Well, Edward. Thank you, Edward, for supporting
Thank you all
us.
very much. In Pawn's case, he lives off of the income. In my case, I have a full-time coding job, but I don't get paid very much. And to be honest, we're out here slaving away, working on these videos. It's good to value ourselves a little bit, and anything that you support us with, we try our best to kind of give you what you deserve for that support.
Your
as much
income
content
from
as
the
we can.
job has been kind of undermined lately by me borrowing from you so much, right? So, if you don't want Harv to starve because he's trying to feed me, then support us both. Thanks for showing up for this one, you guys. Virtual reality, Jesus.
Hologram 1 says, if you're interested, Harv is taking money that Pawn needs without needing it himself. I put work into this goddamn show.
Have you been doing
Do I
that?
not deserve the sweat from my brow? Yeah.
No, it's a socialist utopia, which means that if you're poor, you get all the money. I am poorer than you. I get all the money.
you deserve more, yes.
That is exactly what socialism
is. So for those reasons, any amount you decide to support us with, we treat everyone equally. We've got one tier, and that is the tier of love. And we want to give you all those kind of exclusive benefits behind the scenes, behind... what else is there to be behind of other than the scenes? Documents, scripts, parts of the show that don't quite make it to the show, and now, upcoming, the ability to vote on discussions. And if there are things that you would rather have, and you decided you want to support us, but there's something that we could give you that we're not giving you, let us know, and we'll consider it. We're here to make good content, so...
Thank you for the Cheer Mosaic Task Force, 100 bits. Harv spent his Patreon cut on Cluster Truck, and it is true. I was there. I was there, and I'm so enjoying watching Harvey play Cluster Truck on twitch.tv/HOCgaming whenever Harv streams.
Promoting me now.
But yeah, I got to be there when he downloaded it and installed. I was watching just, while he was doing some art, and he downloaded it, installed, and me, speedrunner Daddy Pawn, got to just watch little Harvey run in, and it made me feel so good. I was actually a little bit worried for you and whether or not you were gonna hate the game, but you started playing, and I'm the game pops up after you've got enough points to buy abilities so that you make the game a little bit easier by being able to float or slow time or something like that. And he just sort of clicked past it, and I'm like, Harvey, about now is when you should be buy the abilities. He's like, what do you think, I'm a chump? I'm going to play no ability just like you do, Pawn. I'm like, yeah. But
I'm
also,
not going to live in your shadow. I'm in this to win it. I'm going to compete. I feel like some of your speedrunning efforts have diffused very slightly. I've really got the jump timing down. I played a little bit just, not today, earlier yesterday without streaming. I was just replaying some of the other levels that I've already
Okay.
completed.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not gonna leave content out. Yeah, I've realized there's like that kind of sweet spot timing where you run as much as you can and then just wait and then jump
Yeah, the lower you get, the
it's
more
fun.
kick you get out of it, and it's really hard
Yeah.
to like to hit that bottom spot without hitting the ground too.
I think the reason I've taken to it, I mean, I'm not gonna toot my own horn and say that I'm a god natural born speedrunner, but it's very similar to the Mirror's Edge wall kick, where you have to go onto a wall kick, wait, then jump, and you hit that one invisible frame where you can just jump off again. It's like the same bug, basically, same mechanic. So I feel like it's very familiar to me already.
Yeah, I would love
But
to
yeah,
see you on the leaderboards. Just want to have some competition on the cluster truck leaderboards? Maybe.
I
Maybe.
mean, maybe. I mean, it's really, it's not, I was going to say therapeutic. It's very frustrating at times, but it is just so like you get into it and you really want to. It's the same appeal, very similar appeal to Beat Saber.
Oh yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this live stream where we brought it around VR and back to VR occasionally and had a nice long discussion about, is VR dead? No, it is not. There were the reasons why. We hope you enjoyed. I think that is about all the time we have for today. So is there anything you'd like to close out with, Pawn? Any final thoughts on life?
I pooped myself.
Harv Pawn, Harv Pawn, Harv and Pawn and 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 Harv and Pawn. Harv and Pawn.
And we are clear. Good job, I guess. I wasn't really watching.